Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Standing Room Only podcast, episode number 56. I am here with Healy, myself, Goose. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Just want to give a special shout out to all the listeners, all the downloads. We got a lot of support over the last week with the special guest. Of course, we had Lucas Giolito on last week. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple Podcasts. Make sure that you guys hit that download button. That is the only way we really can see who's showing love. We don't see our view count. We are on social media. We are SR Only Pod. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. We're on YouTube as well, Standing Room Only Podcast. You can find myself. I'm iGoose with 4 O's. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. And then, of course, you can find Healy.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the Healy6, and then Twitch and YouTube, Healy6. So we didn't really talk about sports last week. So we have some things to catch up on. This is going to be a pretty big basketball episode for us as the preseason is here. A lot of stars have played. There's been some contracts that have been signed. We'll talk about football briefly. We're going to start off with baseball, though. The big story, James McCann going to the Mets, 4 years, $40 million.
Huge.
Lucas, he had high praise for him last week. He was excited for him to get paid. And he got handed the bag. He got handed the bag to the Mets. And the Mets, they decided to go out and get James McCann instead of JT Realmuto. JT's the best catcher in baseball right now. The Mets probably could have got him if they wanted to. But the reason why they went out and got McCann was they heard that JT is going to take a while to sign. So they're like, you know what? Let's just go out and get the guaranteed guy instead of missing out on some of these catchers that are in the free agency market, trying to go for a number one and then whiffing, and then you're without a catcher.
Exactly. So, yeah, that's big time right there, especially the fact that not only did Lucas Giolito praise him, but he caught the no-no that Lucas threw this past season. And he's an all-star catcher, and he's proven the last few years, like, hey, he's worth the money. And I mean, to be fair, yes, is JT Realmuto, is he the best catcher in baseball, or at least as far as the current free agents? Yeah, that's definitely debatable. I would say I would give him number one, but James McCann, you cannot go wrong. You cannot go wrong at all.
So the Mets, they have their catcher. They're probably going to make quite a few signings up until spring training. The free agency market's probably going to move just as slow as it's been in past years. Guys, they want all their offers on the table, and they want to make sure they get the best offer before they sign. Mm-hmm. There's really no point or no difference between signing now or like January 31st. No difference. You're still going to be on that team regardless, and workouts don't even start then. You're working on your own up until then. So for a lot of people, they get antsy, but for the players, it just doesn't matter for them up until the season starts. So that's like the big signing of the week. There isn't really any others. We talked about the non-tenders, but let's just go right to basketball. Giannis Antetokounmpo signed the largest deal in NBA history, $228 million over 5 years. He said he wanted to stay in Milwaukee. He kept his word. And I saw a quote today. He was like, I saw people burning jerseys for other guys that left, and I did not want people doing that for me.
That's an interesting quote. You know, I feel bad for a lot of those guys because there's a lot of those guys who I know, like Durant probably. Actually, I don't even know if Durant was one of them. There's just a lot of people who are very passionate fans who have this desire of hate built up for anything that doesn't go their way. And I get it, and especially for social media, for content views. But I mean, anybody, if Giannis were to would have not signed the extension and ended up leaving, it would have been on the Bucks organization for not helping him out, for not going out. Yeah, they grabbed Drew Holiday, but Drew Holiday isn't this young stud. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. He helps. But when, if you're only capped at Drew Holiday and nobody else, and Giannis is like, all right, guys, we didn't win again. I'm going to be maybe the third time. It might be a three-peat for all we know because of how dominating he is. He's only getting better. I don't see how teams can really, or fans can go out and just burn jerseys. For him to make that comment, I think there was more to it. I think the biggest thing for him, and like you mentioned, he said Milwaukee is his home. He made it a point. Like, yeah, I'm gonna stay here. They have to pay me. Both sides met. He got the largest contract in NBA history, as he should. And I'm extremely happy for him. I'm extremely happy for both sides. I'm excited for the Bucks. You're keeping somebody in the East. It's going to be competitive. Obviously, us as Bulls fans, we can drive up to Milwaukee. We're from Chicago. We get to go up to Milwaukee for the next 5 years, at least 6 years, to go see Giannis ball out, man. So I'm excited for him. I think it was well deserved. And you got to show, when somebody has that caliber, and when they say show me the money, you got to show them the money, and they did.
Yeah, and with him signing there, that pretty much adds another competitive team over the next 5 years. Because if he would have left, he would have gone to a team that's already been competitive. And the NBA in its state that it's in right now is one of the best it's been within the past, like, I would say 6 to 7 years.
Yeah, with the talent
As a
level
whole.
on every single team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot.
It's not as lopsided. We don't know who's going to the finals from each conference.
Yep.
And I also was like listening to Kenny, King of the Fourth Quarter, talk about this. Giannis grew up pretty poor. He grew up in a very unfortunate situation. So he's just happy to be in the situation that he's in now. It's also good for the small market team to keep their star, to prevent, like, because we've seen so many times throughout history where guys go from these small market teams and then just go to a large market like LA or New York, Chicago, and their teams just go down the drain, I guess. But what does this mean for Milwaukee? It means like a superstar could end up teaming up with Giannis at some point. It means that this Drew Holiday trade was actually good. They gave up first-round picks. They don't matter anymore now that Giannis is still there. They're going to be giving up like 27th, 28th round, or like the number 27 or 28th pick in the drafts.
Yeah.
You aren't be giving up lottery picks. If Giannis would have left, then sure, yeah, you would have given up a couple firsts that could have ended up in the lottery. But those picks are irrelevant. You have Drew Holiday there. He's 1 year left, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But he could re-sign now if he's playing well with Giannis. They just need another piece. I think they're going to be a big bet to make the Eastern Conference Championship, but there's still like one pretty big piece away from them being like a guarantee to win it all.
We know that their defense was stellar. They were good. In the playoffs, they struggled a little bit. It was actually a defensive series against Miami. You bring in Drew Holiday, who is a two-way player. He's very good on the perimeter. His offense is pretty damn good. I don't know if anybody really watched the Pelicans or not, but he was pretty damn good on the offensive side as well. So you're adding to the defense. You're bringing in a different dimension to the offense. I go through the comment section of different social or on social media through different sports media. And, I see people are like, oh, Giannis is never going to win because he can't shoot the three. He needs to play center, a bunch of different things. And in my head, I'm like, Giannis has no control. That's not Giannis's fault if they don't win. Giannis is a one-man show and has been. And I mean, yeah, he's had pieces around him that kind of fit in, but for a player to put up the player efficiency rating that he did, that's a huge rating. That number is big. That's like your all-round I think it's like they take your points per 48 minutes or 36 minutes maybe. And, he's scoring at such a fast pace and he's rebounding at such a fast pace. And he's built like a super, like a stronger Kevin Durant, right? He's even taller than Kevin Durant, I believe by like an inch. And like, he's just all round. Obviously there's a reason why he's back-to-back player, but that doesn't define hey, he's part of a championship winning team. And like you said, Healy, they are one piece away. I don't know what that piece is yet. They've been able to shoot the three ball, but they haven't been that great. They're not like
No.
run and gun Golden State or run and gun I wouldn't say the Lakers are running gun, but like there's a lot of teams out there who just love to fire up the three. Houston loves to fire up the three. I feel like you need that impact player who can fill it up quick, especially when Giannis is driving and he's 1 Euro step and all of a sudden he's dunking it. Well, now he's 1 Euro step and all of a sudden somebody's opening the corner, this other superstar that they got, and he's going to drill it every single time. There's just so many different dynamics that you can work with, whether if it's a good 3-point shooter. I don't think you have to rely on Giannis developing the three. I don't think you have to rely on Giannis playing the five unless he packs on 60 pounds for whatever reason. But I think that with Milwaukee being in the East and Giannis staying there, they're going to compete as long as he's playing in the NBA.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, they might not need a player. Giannis could develop. He could shoot the three a tad bit, but like
A little bit,
if he
yeah.
develops more of an outside game, he might not need that extra player, dude.
That's scary. Can you imagine how many people are going to step up thinking, oh, wait, we got to respect the fact that he can shoot the three, so let's close out. Well, his pump fake just drew you in one step. His one step is about three of your steps, and all of a sudden he's dunking it, and you're on a poster now, or your center's on a poster because he blew by you. Giannis is a freak. They literally have been calling him the Greek freak since he's been in the league, and he's only getting freakier. It's nuts. Watching him play is phenomenal. And I'm a huge, huge fan of, the LeBrons and all these other guys and like Kawhi Leonard and all these other guys. But I feel like athletic and build and scoring and rebounding ability, he's a freak of nature, and it's amazing to watch.
So we will see how the Bucks play this year. I'm so ready for the season to start. I am super ready.
We're a week away.
Yeah, just under a week. Next Tuesday. Yeah. And one of those games next Tuesday is going to be the Nets. Kevin Durant is back.
He's back, baby.
One of my favorite players in the game. I made my 2K guy after him, like his play style and whatnot. And dude, I want to watch the Bulls every single game this year. I want to watch the Nets as well. The Nets looked so good the other day.
The Nets are an incredible team, just on paper, going into last season, right? But, disregard any injuries, disregard the fact that Kyrie was hurt and sat out and may or may not have been hurt, whatever. I like everybody on that team. I love the fact that they added Landry Shamet, who can shoot the three ball. They have their role players. They have Jared Allen, who may start some games, may come off the bench, but that duo with him and DeAndre Jordan, one of those two guys are in the game. That's scary paint presence right there, because both of those guys get a lot of blocks. DeAndre Jordan, obviously, is getting a little bit older. Doesn't mean he's slowed down that much defensively. And like you mentioned, Kevin Durant is back, and the duo between him and Kyrie is going to be something special. I didn't watch the game. I watched the highlights. I watched the highlights of the game. And Durant doesn't really look like he lost much after his injury.
No,
doesn't
not
look
at
like
all.
He lost anything. So, and he was never really that explosive player. He's just so fundamentally sound. He's kind of slanky. He's a little elusive. He's able to beat you off the dribble because of his size. And he's kind of like a skinnier guy. He's kind of quick, but his big game is pull up jumper, and that's going to go nowhere. Like, you can't take that away from him, and you can't defend it. Ask LeBron. So the fact that he came back and hasn't lost a step, you have Kyrie, who obviously looks pretty good too, and you add in the other pieces around them. I think the Nets, Shamet, dude, Landry Shamet for me, I'm a fan of Shamet. When he was over in Philly was scoring, and I don't know if he was with the Clippers. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
but
that's where it was.
That's where it was, right? And I mean, he's a very consistent. He's going to light it up. There's going to be games where he almost doesn't miss from three. He has bad games, but he's going to average about 40% from threes, which is that's your role. You're in there to shoot the three ball, and he's young, and you have all, like I said, Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan. I like the pieces that they have, and the fact that they're in the East, we're gonna see them battle it out with the Bucks, with Miami. This is the most excited I've been for the East in a long time, in a very long time. And let's not mention our Chicago Bulls are going to be competing for that 8th seed, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, them along with the Wizards. The Wizards are going to
Wizards.
be, man, John Wall and Russell Westbrook. I'm actually very happy that trade happened.
That was a perfect swap. Perfect swap.
It makes
I know a lot
the
of people
NBA
hate.
What?
I was going to say a lot of people were hating on one side or the other. A lot of people were saying, oh, Westbrook, what is he going to do in Washington? People were like, John Wall hasn't played in 2 years. Look at Westbrook's numbers. He averaged a triple-double. Okay, first of all, slow it down and look at the two teams. Look how they play together. Look at at how they're running the teams. We saw John Wall in his first game back in the preseason against Chicago, and wow, for somebody that's been hurt the last couple of years, he's another one where he has not really lost a step. He has not lost a step. And I think with him teaming up with James Harden, you have DeMarcus Cousins, they have Christian Wood, who's, I don't know if he's going to start or come off the bench or play the 4. I don't know what the actual starting lineup's going to be. They have pieces that I feel like is a better dynamic than what they had with Russ. And that's not taking anything away from Russ. That's not saying Russ is bad. It's just saying that set of players, he wasn't that glue piece, right? Now you bring him to Washington and you have him with Bradley Beal, Hachimura. They have I'm missing somebody else big time.
They just
They have,
drafted Denny.
oh yeah, Denny, they have Bertans. They're a team in the East that's going to compete. They've been a team that's always competed. Russ, you bring to the Eastern Conference for the first time. I mean, if it's true how it's been, if the West truly dominates, the East just got better, and perhaps Russ could be that point for Washington to get over that hump because they've been battling for the 8th seed as well. So I'm excited. I've watched both teams so far. I think both teams got better with that trade.
Yeah, I feel like the two duos work better. I feel like Russell Westbrook, he kind of needs the ball in his hands to facilitate and run the offense.
Yeah.
When he was with the Rockets, though, him and James Harden loves ISOing. He works well with the ball as well. It just didn't work out too well. I feel like Bradley Beal, he's a volume shooter. He can make his own shot, but also Russell Westbrook could find him a bunch and get him some buckets. John Wall, on the other hand, I feel like he's more of like a point guard, which he can work off the ball, I feel like the offense could run still through James Harden, but if Wall ends up getting the ball in the possession, he could facilitate a little bit or make his own shot and like drive to the basket.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think Russ I think he does it pretty well too. I think he does work off the ball at times, but he has to be in control. I mean, that's just the X factor right there. When he was with OKC, when Paul George was there were times where Paul George would take it at the top and Russ was backdooring to the bucket like it was not wide open. So, and I think that's the way it's going to work with Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal, I mean, we know what Bradley Beal is capable of. I mean, multiple 50-point games last season. I just hope that both of these guys, knowing that they are technically superstars, I would consider Bradley Beal a borderline superstar considering his numbers the last couple of years. I hope that mentally these guys don't butt heads.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I feel like James Harden and John Wall has bumped heads, I feel like, with the organization with Washington in general. I think he just wanted out of there. But I've never really heard of him getting into it with players. I've never heard of him really beefing with players. Versus, Russ had a falling out with OKC. He demanded the trade. He goes to Houston. All of a sudden, 1 year in Houston, he wants to trade. It makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes. John Wall, I'm super excited. He's been one of my favorite point guards to watch over the last few years, and I just think I agree, Healy. It's a perfect situation for both teams and both players.
Yeah, with or without James Harden playing, James Harden is back, but even if he wasn't going to play, I feel like this Rockets team, they were not going to be nearly as good without him, but I feel like they could have competed. Boogie's been pretty decent. The Rockets have a better squad now.
Oh yeah,
They actually have a big man, which will be great. But James Harden, he finally showed up to practice and training camp, and man, he looked like he put on a lot of weight.
he was not in shape. You know what triggered it was Rick Ross was trending on Twitter. I click Rick Ross under trending, and it's nothing but pictures of James Harden. And literally all the captions were, it's funny how this picture of James Harden led me to click on Rick Ross trending because of the gut. Rick Ross lost it and James Harden gained it. But yeah, he looked out of shape. But you know what? He didn't lose a step. There was a couple pull up jumpers that he had where I was like, all right, you know what? Give him a couple weeks, maybe shed a few pounds, or get into shape, whatever you want to call it. Maybe he didn't gain weight. Maybe he just, maybe he just doesn't have the six pack. Maybe he wasn't doing a lot of running.
Mm.
Um, and I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine. He's still very talented, but man, Twitter world blew up, and I know for a fact he is right now is probably like that will never happen again.
Yeah, I think during the quarantine and like the bubble, he was a little on the heavier side. He's never been like super jacked. So
Mhm.
like he could play basketball. He's a baller as
Yeah.
is. It doesn't really matter. There's someone that posted a photo from like May of last year, and the dude was like super in shape and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was just odd. He's an athlete. Athletes have pretty high metabolisms, especially if they work out. And they do all the right things. They have to eat a shitload of calories every day
Yep.
to maintain it. So he'll be fine. You'll see the transformation probably happen throughout the year. But wanted to just talk about that for a little bit. The Bulls are playing now, though. As stated earlier, I want to see every single one of their games. Patrick Williams got his first start tonight. And the teams look pretty solid from what I've seen in this Thunder game. But as the days go by, I'm getting more and more excited that we have Patrick Williams on the team. You were stating before the podcast, you were talking a lot about him.
Oh yeah. I I watched the last couple of games. Obviously, they played back to back against Houston, now OKC, and I was pretty amazed with the warm ups. They had like their pregame warm up dunks. They all were throwing down windmills. Pat Williams is throwing down the cleanest windmill dunks that I've seen from somebody that I've never really knew of before a draft. He's super athletic. Defensively, obviously, we know he's drawn the comparisons to Kawhi Leonard. He's very athletic. His offense isn't bad. His offense, I wouldn't say is bad. He's got like a nice little mid range, maybe a little bit of good inside the paint game. His shooting, we don't know really too much yet. He hasn't really tried to fill it up from downtown. I know he wasn't really a big three-point shooter in college, but I think if he steps in and plays this role, the core that they have right now, this is where I'm excited. Since we're on the topic of the Bulls and Pat Williams. Pat Williams is stepping in at the three and probably is going to be our starter for a while. Maybe he comes off the bench because of Otto Porter Jr. We're paying him all that money. The way I'm looking at it is we're going to see Pat Williams get his minutes. He'll probably average starting off 20 minutes a game to start. Eventually, towards the end of the season, you're going to see him playing 25 to 30 minutes, may eventually take over the starting role. Here's why. We don't imagine the Bulls being a playoff team this year. I mean, sure, they should be able to compete for the 8th, 7th seed in the East. They have a great team. They're healthy. But what Billy Donovan is going to do is start to dissect and work slowly. You're going to see a lot of different lineups throughout the season. And what I think you're going to see in the last 10, 12 game push is our team, our core moving forward. And this is what I'm saying. Otto Porter Jr. is owed $28 million this year. He's off the books after this year. Of course, he opted in. I don't blame him. I would have opted in too if I was as bad as him getting paid as much as I am. He's not that bad. I don't want to take anything away from Otto Porter. But the fact is that I don't know about you, Healy, but we were talking about it. I'm super excited watching this core. Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter, Pat Williams. That five. The fact that we're going to have 30, maybe close to 40 million next season to spend, because Felicio, I think, is a free agent as well, and he's getting like 9 million a year. And don't forget about Daniel Gafford coming off the bench, but he may be there just in case of a trade. I'm excited and ready for free agency next year because of what I'm seeing from these guys, because of what I'm seeing from Pat Williams. I'm excited to watch them all this year, just the same way you are, but I'm more excited for them to really show that identity that's going to say, okay, we need to go out and grab this guy or this position. Like, until, you know what I mean? Like, once we get to the end of the season on that last push, we're like, all right, we have Pat Williams solidified. He's the small forward. Maybe we need a better center. Maybe we need somebody to come off the bench, or maybe we want Kobe White to come off the bench. We're going to grab a point guard. We're going to know as we go on. Obviously, everybody's on the trade block. As far as I know, everybody's on the trade block besides Kobe White and Pat Williams.
Yeah, that would. We'll see what moves happen. The free agency class for next year, though, is dwindling with all these extensions that have been signed. There's still probably a couple big names out there, but it is not nearly as large as it once was a few weeks ago.
Which goes back to my point that I've gotten into arguments with people about the Paul George contract. What Healy just said, which is not many big name players are in free agency because of all the extensions. You wonder why Paul George got paid? It's because the Clippers had no choice. He is better than pretty much any free agent coming up in the next couple of years. So anybody who's upset about Paul George or is a hater of Paul George and think he doesn't deserve that contract, I'm telling you, he deserved it way more than a lot of guys who got extensions. Yeah, he didn't show up in the playoffs, but that's just something, a little side note I wanted to touch base on because I've been seeing a lot of hate over the last couple of weeks on that.
Did we talk about that contract on the podcast?
I think it happened right before our episode with Giolito. I don't know if we actually talked about it. I remember I go through the comments, like I said, on social media, and people are like, wow, I forgot what they were calling him, COVID P something, or he doesn't show up in the playoffs. And it's like, sure, he's lost a couple series.
Pandemic P.
I mean, Pandemic Pete, thank you. Yes. And I had to laugh at that. I mean, it's a funny nickname. But when you think about it from a business standpoint and you're running like the front office, I think that's the best thing you can do is grab somebody like him. You still have Kawhi. You keep that core to build around. And I think with the Bulls, that takes away from any other team being able to pick him up and then leave you guys with, I don't know who's going to be out there. Otto Porter next year is going to be out there. Giannis is off the books now. AD's off the books now. LeBron's off the books now. You know what I mean? All these guys flew off the books that signed extensions. So it was a good move for Paul George to not only get that extension, but I mean, to help keep that core and keep competing against the Lakers.
Yeah, as overrated as people claim him to be, I think he's becoming underrated from people overrating him so much.
I agree.
He's still a very good player. Like I don't really understand. I don't understand the hate with that contract. Yep. It's one season. The whole team. It wasn't like he was the main reason why they lost. They blew multiple leads against the Nuggets.
Yep, Montrezl Harrell didn't show up, and he went and got a deal with the Lakers. Like any given Sunday, right? That's the term. Any given Sunday, any team can win any given Sunday. The rule applies with basketball, And to be fair, I don't know any teams that are really going to outplay the Lakers with who they have right now over the next season or two. So we'll see. I mean, the Clippers could end up having the potential to do it by keeping Paul George.
Yeah. There's two teams that I would probably want to watch as well go off this year. The first one we'll talk about, the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry is back.
Oh, man.
He dropped like 29 yesterday or 2 nights ago.
29 points, I think, in like 28 minutes.
3 quarters.
Yeah, in 3 quarters. Guys, I have a fantasy draft tonight. I'm eyeballing Steph Curry. they're going to compete for that 8th spot. I know that they don't have Clay, but with James Wiseman, Steph Curry, they have Andrew Wiggins, who Kelly Oubre. Oh man, those two right there are going to be the X factor right there, because we don't know what role they're going to actually blow up in. Because Andrew Wiggins, we've been waiting. We're like, oh man, this guy's going to come out. He's going to average 25, maybe 30 a game. He's going to throw down sick dunks. Well, he never really took off in Minnesota. He hasn't really taken off yet. He's shown signs, and I think this year is the year. There's no Klay Thompson, Steph Curry. Everybody's going to have their eyes on him. Kelly Oubre's another one. He's had great games in the past. I've drafted him in fantasy in my fantasy leagues in the past. Kind of disappointed sometimes, but there was quite a few times where you're like, all right, this is the Kelly Oubre that was all hype coming into the league. So I think the Warriors, like I said, I don't think they're going to really compete past a first round playoffs, but Steph Curry looked nice, man. That's all I got to say about that. I'm excited.
Yeah, that's another team that's coming back. And the second team that I'm excited to watch, that like a lot of people probably it's flying under the radar. You want to give a guess? One team.
Are we talking the Suns?
Yes. The Phoenix Suns.
Let's
Chris
go.
Paul, Devin Booker. They have DeAndre Ayton. Their team is looking very under the radar-ish. They could be competing for a playoff spot. They were last year without Chris Paul.
Without Chris Paul. And
Chris Paul is going to step in.
With OKC. With that OKC team. Not to take anything away from them either. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of my favorite players to watch. But Chris Paul is able to, he's able to facilitate. He's able to slow the game down. He's still a very fast point guard. Defensively he's still pretty good. I'm excited, man. Devin Booker, if you guys thought you've seen the best of Devin Booker, wait. Chris Paul is going to make him shine like a diamond. Just wait on it. And DeAndre Ayton, too. A lot of people have been sleeping on him because he hasn't been putting up the numbers that they thought.
Suspended.
And he got suspended. Yeah, wasn't that was PEDs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so now that he's back, having a mentor like Chris Paul, a guy who's played with the best of the best, who's competed in the semi-conference finals. I think didn't he play the Spurs when he was with the Hornets back in the day with a David West? And I don't even know who else is on the team, but I could tell you Chris Paul. Oh, they had Peja Stojakovic. I almost forgot about him. He was a dog. That was a team. And Chris Paul, I mean, he's just one of those guys. He's one of those guys that everybody looks up to. Obviously, he's the president of the Players Association for a reason. And I think he's going to really, really get this young core going. As like you mentioned, they were already going last year. I feel like they have the best chance to leap forward versus maybe the Pelicans or maybe the Grizzlies. Still like those other two teams, but I think the Suns are going to be right there for like a 7th seed.
I saw a video today at Suns practice. I think it was maybe like, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if it was 3v3 or 5-on-5. I'm going to assume it's 3-on-3, but like they were like one bucket away from winning. Chris Paul got a switch onto like one of the rookie big men that they got. And he's like out loud, he's like, go to the other side. Go to the other side. Chris Paul did a couple dribble moves, went to his right, mid-range, popped it. He's like, game.
Oh, man.
That's Chris teaching Paul the young guy.
That's what it's about, man. I'm telling you, he's going to come in. I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Paul goes to coaching right after he's done. Because, like, that's just his knowledge. He's just one of those point guards. He's like a Steve Nash. He's just so smart with the ball. And obviously talented. His skill, he has not lost that skill set, even though he's getting up there in age. But he's kind of like a LeBron as far as, like, maintaining your health, facilitating everybody, having everybody look up to you, and having that confidence. Having that confidence for him is huge. Huge for the rest of the team. And I think this is where the passing of the torch to the younger generation, such as Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, I think this is what's going to kickstart it, is having somebody like Chris Paul there.
Yeah, so next week, December 22nd is when opening day is. We will be talking about it on the next podcast as we record on Wednesdays. We're going to be talking about the Nets next week along with all the other teams. But as for like NBA news, that is going to do it for this week. NFL news. Big news for your Packers. They won the
Yes.
division.
The real kings of the North, guys. The Green Bay Packers clinched the NFC North, as you guys probably may already know. So that's awesome. They're still fighting for that first round bye. The Saints are holding on strong. Being without Drew Brees and Taysom Hill stepping in, I think for the Saints, I think they got their guy moving forward. Now, he's not elite status by all means. He's not an elite quarterback like Drew Brees, but those guys are one of a kind. He falls in with a small category of the Tom Brady's, of the Aaron Rodgers, the Peyton Mannings, the Pat Mahomes. There's a group of them, and it's a small group. Not many guys will get there, but Taysom Hill is proving he can help lead this team as long as they still have the right pieces around him, and that defense keeps doing what they're doing. So I think the Saints still might hold on, but Green Bay to me is the favorite in the NFC right now, simply because nobody can stop Aaron Rodgers and that offense. And I mean, let's face it, the Packers' pass defense is not bad this year. It's been better than it's been in most years. So I still think that they are my favorite for the NFC to get that first round bye, if not to at least compete at a higher level than the other guys. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with Drew Brees. Still in pain. But yeah, I'm super excited, man. I'm super excited. This is the best Aaron Rodgers has been in a couple of years. And of course, it took us wasting a first-round draft pick on a Jordan Love who may or may not end up getting time to play as long as Aaron Rodgers decides to step up. Not to mention he doesn't have a girlfriend anymore. Not to take anything away, but it's just this weird thing with quarterbacks and girlfriends that we've seen in the history, such as like Tony Romo and some other quarterbacks.
Aaron
But he's got
Rodgers as well.
That's what I mean. Aaron Rodgers, he's single now. So I think, I'm not saying that that's a big factor, but, he's able to focus on himself and the whole thing with drafting Jordan Love and that defense. I mean, the offense has every reason to get excited when their defense is rushing the quarterback. They're causing a lot of turnovers. They give up the big plays. Green Bay, to me, will always be a team that gives up the big plays. But I'm super excited. They're number one in the NFC to me.
Yeah, they are the Bears. They finally got their first win in I don't know how many weeks.
Trubisky.
6 weeks, I think it was, that they went without winning. But man, dude, they showed up though against the Texans. David Montgomery, 80-yard run. Trubisky looked nice. I saw someone on Twitter pointing out that he was under center more and they're doing more play action plays for him. It was working out, which
that's huge, especially when Montgomery's running the way he is. Montgomery's been, I don't know if anybody's been looking at his stats, but for FanDuel purposes, been averaging over 20 points the last 2 or 3 weeks. As you mentioned, he had the 80-yard touchdown run. That was his first handoff of the game. 80 yards. He had a huge run to start against Green Bay. He had a huge run. So I think as long as that running game keeps getting established and they keep running those play action plays, Mitch Trubisky's gonna, I think as long as he doesn't overthink things, he'll start to settle in. And I feel like, I mean, like I said earlier, they, before the podcast, Healy, we were talking, they have a fighter's chance. They do have Green Bay once more, but the rest of their schedule is pretty easy. And I believe Arizona is the other team that would be getting that last wild card spot. And Arizona has to play their division still, I think, one more time. So it's going to be tough. There's 3 games left and anything can happen. But Chicago fans, don't count yourselves out yet, because if you guys sneak into the playoffs and you start to establish an offense that decides it wants to move the ball and it keeps your defense off the field, that is when you see Robert Quinn dominating. That is when you see Khalil Mack dominating, is when these guys aren't constantly on the field. Mm-hmm. So as long as the offensive coordinator and Nagy and the Trubisky, and they're all on the same page and they can really pound the ball and open up the pass game and time management, you will see bigger things from the Chicago defense. And that's coming from a Packers fan. I've always been fearful of the Chicago Bears and their defense.
And the test starts this week. So the remaining games are the Vikings, who are also 6-7. They started off terribly. The Bears started off amazing. and they both have the same record now. Weird how
Yep.
football works. They have the Jaguars, which should be a complete W. They should not
Should
lose
be.
that at all. Shouldn't. Gardner Minshew is coming back. Minshew mania on the on the rise again. And then the Packers in week 17. It all depends. Well, I guess the Packers are going to be fighting for that number 1 seed. They aren't going to be fighting for a bye. Like, it's not like previous years where they're top 2 and they're just like, yeah, you know what? Let's just
Right.
rest our players. No, it's going to be Bears versus Packers, week 17. They're both going to be fighting against each other. That's going to be a tough game right there. So the Bears, they have to at least win these next 2 games, especially considering how badly they lost to the Packers the first time. You cannot lose to the Vikings. I think if they lose to the Vikings this week, their run is over.
Oh, hands down. Yeah, because I don't know if they're going to beat Green Bay, but the way I looked at it was, I think if they win 3 games, because they're what? Aren't they 1 game behind the
They're
Cardinals?
6-7, and the
They're
Cardinals
six.
are 7-6.
Yeah, so they're 1 game behind in that for that last wild card spot. The Cardinals have their remaining schedule. They have Philadelphia, who is with Jalen Hurts is a completely different football team because their defense has been pretty solid all year. They just won their last game, I'm pretty sure. They've been competing with other teams that they've played, but their defense is the biggest thing. Cardinals they beat the Giants, which is fine, but they lost to the Patriots. They lost to the Rams. They lost to the Seahawks. They barely beat the Bills. They lost to the Dolphins. Eagles, 49ers, which is a Saturday game, day after Christmas, and the Rams. So Cardinals are not only fighting for their division, they're fighting for that last wildcard spot against teams who are also fighting for the division. I can see the Cardinals losing 2 out of 3. And the Bears have got to at least beat Minnesota. If they don't beat Minnesota, I don't, like you mentioned, I don't see them sliding in at all. And I mean, I feel like at this point, even if you lose out, where are you going to land in the draft? I don't think there's really anybody there. I mean, they're going to be in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, they're going to end up with just like a middle pick, which in football, not necessarily as bad. There's always so much talent, and especially this quarterback class. If you aren't top 5, you aren't getting Hurts, or not Hurts. You aren't getting Fields or Lawrence.
Yep.
But there's still other options. They'd find their way there. Big games this week: Kansas City and New Orleans. Sunday. That's not even the Sunday night game. They flexed the Browns and the Giants to the Sunday night game. I completely forgot about that.
Horrible.
Which the Giants, they have a chance to win their division.
You're right.
Like tie it up. And also the Browns, they're 2 games behind the Steelers. So they're also fighting for a playoff spot. Makes sense. I'm kind of surprised that the Chiefs and Saints are at the 4:25 slot and they aren't the Sunday night game. Monday night's going to be terrible with Pittsburgh and Cincinnati playing. Other good matchups from this week. Seems like they're pretty lopsided. You got Miami and New England. If Miami wins, New England will officially be 500 or below, and Miami will officially finish above 500. You got Washington and Seattle, who both are fighting for the division. Washington leads the division. It's in Washington. And besides that, like, most of the games are kind of just iffy for this week.
Oh, man. We start games on Saturday this week. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Your Packers play this week.
Oh, man. This is exciting, guys. This is where we're getting football like Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday until the playoffs. Thursday, as you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned Chargers and Raiders. Raiders are still kind of trying to stay relevant. Chargers obviously have had a tough season, lost a lot of games by 1 score. Packers and Panthers is a big game. Panthers probably, I don't see them making the playoffs. I don't even think statistically or realistically like they actually can make the playoffs because they're 4-9. And with their injuries to CMC, I just don't see them really being too much of a competition for Green Bay, but that is a Saturday night game. Bears and Vikings are a big game. Lions and Titans. Not that big of a game, but I expect it to be a shootout. I definitely expect Derrick Henry to have another 200-yard game, total yards, I want to say. But yeah, I mean, there's not really any other big games, but I'm looking forward to the Chiefs and Saints. I'll stick around for the Browns and Giants. Giants defense has been interesting. They've been a very interesting team. A team without Saquon Barkley. They've had Wayne Gallman step in, who's been actually not bad. A lot of people picked him up after Saquon got hurt. People dropped him in my fantasy leagues at some point. Re-picked him up. And I mean, he's been filling in and scoring. Jones is Jones. He's not bad. So I'm excited to see what happens there. That whole NFC East, I don't know. Maybe they're better than what the record says.
Man, might have to watch that Saturday night game.
Saturday, yeah. I think that's going to be a must. That's going to be the Bears played the Panthers. I forget, the Bears lost to the Panthers, didn't they? That was like in the middle.
Yes.
Because I think it was in the middle of their losing streak.
Yeah.
Panthers aren't a bad team. They're a good football team. Bridgewater is a solid quarterback. Without Christian McCaffrey, Mike Davis steps in. He does well. I just don't think he is it. I don't think he's that factor. It all depends on the defense, but I highly, highly doubt that they're going to be able to slow down. This Rodgers to Adams connection is unbelievable.
Bears won that game, 23-16.
Oh, that was the one that they won in. Okay.
Yeah, and then they started the losing
streak. Okay. So the Bears were able to pull it off. I'm confident Green Bay should be able to pull it off. I expect Teddy Bridgewater to have solid numbers. I mean, I always expect a player against the Packers to put up some big numbers, but turnovers and going, I mean, toe-to-toe with this offense, with Aaron Jones, with Devontae Adams and Robert Tonyan at tight end and everybody else that they have. It's just, I don't know. There's something special this year.
So next week we will be 2 weeks away from the playoffs. The season's winding up or winding down, as the phrase goes. But we will see what happens then. I'm excited to look back at our predictions that we had at the beginning of the year. Once the regular season is over, we will be talking about the standings as a whole, where we had teams finishing up. We didn't have full standings, but we predicted division winners and wild card teams. I'm pretty sure both of us had like the Patriots making it in some sort, not looking like a reality this year. Yeah, we will be back with that. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Standing Room Only podcast. As always, make sure you download the episode. Best way to show support, follow our social media at SROnlyPod on Twitter and Instagram. Follow our personal pages, Healy6 on Twitch and YouTube. And then for Twitter and Instagram, the Healy6. And for Goose,
I am iGoose with 4 O's. Instagram, Twitter, Twitch. Come check me out.
We'll talk to you guys next week.